This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Branding and culture expert Dr. Mona Amodeo on this edition of Conversations. Back in 2010, we spoke with Mona Amodeo about sustainability and running an environmentally responsible business.
A tree hugger. This is about how do we create better models that, as Ray says, is not only the right thing to do, but the smart thing to do for us and our grandchildren.
Those ideas have become quite prevalent. Customers and employees no longer see socially conscious values as a bonus, but rather as a necessity. So how do you create a brand and an organization that is both a great citizen as well as a profitable and thriving entity? Well, you may find some answers in Amodeo's new book, Beyond Sizzle, The Next Evolution of Branding. We welcome back to Conversations Dr. Mona Amodeo. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. So great to be here. It's kind of nice to be able to make these connections for so many years ago to today.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I was looking back at that program last night, and I was thinking just, wow, how things have changed. A lot of the stuff that we talked about that you felt was very important in business evolving is really starting to gain some traction, nationwide, and for that matter, around the globe. So tell me about the new book.
Yeah, I think it was so great to see that because this book really has its genesis with that research that I did back in, really it was 2008, 2009, and with a company named Interface. And it was there that I first began to understand the depth of the power of purpose in organizations. It was there that I began to really see the global impact one company could make who makes a decision to be both responsible but still profitable. And so the book is my effort to translate those learnings from a company, Interface, but also the work I've done since then, since 2010, with our clients and the research and other people, really about how do we create a company that I say that people love to love, right? Ultimately, organizations must respond to the question, who are you, what do you do, and why should I care? And increasingly today, as we that was kind of cool. Maybe I did know something back then. But what we know from today is it is no longer enough to produce just good quality products and services, although that always will be and remains important. People want to know what's behind the company. And so the name Beyond Sizzle is really about how organizations can build a company that people love to love because they connect with the values and the purpose of that company. When we think about branding, most of us say, or most people think in terms of a brand is a logo, or a brand is, some great ad campaign. But ultimately, a brand is defined by me and by others as the meaning people associate when they hear your name. So the branding process is that process of creating meaning. And today that meaning that people are looking for is they want meaning of a company that says, this is what we believe. We are a great company from the standpoint of how we, product services, but also how we treat our people. Our responsibility to the world, our social contract with the world, that we're here to make the world better, not just make our pocketbooks bigger. And it is a false choice to think that either or. It is really the ultimate power of an organization and the sustainability of an organization to find that and that says we can be good citizens of the world, we can produce great products, we can treat our people well, and we can succeed.
I just read something here a day or so ago that the millennial generation will surpass the baby boomers, like coming up here real soon, as the largest.
If not, have not already.
Yeah. And the millennial generation, it is, from what I gather, is very important to them, not just to collect a paycheck, but to have some meaning in the jobs that they do
No
and
doubt.
have some social value. Is that what your research
Yeah,
is
I mean,
discovering?
and it's my research and the research of many, many other people that, like I said, what I am saying is not something that I'm the only person talking about today.
Right.
Now, back in the day,
Right.
I always say, they thought it was the granolas and the hippies,
Right.
the Birkenstocks. I say, well, the Birkenstocks have moved from the margins to the mainstream.
Right.
And a lot of these ideas are the central core desires of today's workforce. Equally important from the people who are buying products and services. So the research clearly shows that people are making decisions about who to buy from, who to work for, based on values. And the values that they're looking for is that you are a good citizen, that you treat people well. Jeff, sometimes we overcomplicate this in that we think about, we try to we subdivide all these ideas, but let's think about it. Who do you want to be friends with? Who do you want to be associated with? People who do the right thing, people who treat you with respect and dignity, people that you feel are, good people.
Right.
It's no difference with business. We want to do business with those companies that are that have this sense of purpose and intention and being good citizens and good people. And yes, to your point, just very long answer to your short question. Yes, the research clearly shows that today's millennials, and I think beyond that, want to work with companies that are the kind of companies that we call brands that matter, right? So yes.
Yeah, and I think the other thing initially, perhaps when we were talking back in, I guess it was 2014,
yeah.
that there was some sort of mentality that if I'm going to be socially conscious or if I'm going to do something environmentally friendly or something, that's going to cost me money and that's going to hurt the bottom line, so on and so forth. But now the big thing on Wall Street and the big thing a lot of us are talking about in the investment world is the environmentally, socially responsible, great governance and things like that, ESG investments.
Yeah.
Expand on that concept.
Yeah, I mean, who is it? Blackstone? Is that who the big investment group is? That the angel investors? That a lot of these investors
They're
are
private equity.
basically saying, we're not going to invest in companies that cannot show us proof of their social environmental responsibility policies. So I think that again, the ideas that we were talking back, and when I was thinking, sometimes I think about this, I think I started really studying this stuff in about 1998. And at that point, when we would talk about it, a lot of people would just kind of glaze over, like, sure, whatever, But today, this is not optional.
Right.
Companies that don't get this, in my opinion, are not likely going to be here. Because, again, go back to my original question or my original statement, the organizations must answer the question, who are you, what do you do, and why should I care? And part of answering that question is to address these issues that we're talking about. So it's not like you can just ignore this. It's not a bolt-on, let's go give a little bit of money to some people. It goes into the culture of the organization. So Beyond Sizzle is really about an alignment, is looking at branding from a wholly different perspective. If branding is about creating meaning, how do we create meaning that says this company, our company, stands for these values? But here's the key. You just can't talk about it. You got to do it. And so this alignment between what you want people to believe about you, your brand, and the culture of the organization, what you stand for, must be aligned. And so in order to do that, you've got to engage people inside your organization. You've got to have different kind of conversations. And how do we more effectively produce a product? How do we get our productivity up? You really have to have conversations in this organization around what do we stand for? What are our values? More importantly, how are we going to live these values? How will we make decisions as a leadership team, as a company, based on these values? What will we say no to? What will we say yes to? These aren't surface level conversations. Right. These are important conversations. And so I think that today's leaders, today's entrepreneurs, today's business people in general have to constantly do what all business people have always done, which says, what is the world looking for, and how do we meet those needs? Back in the day, there was a small group of people who were making decisions based on social environmental values. Today, a huge number of people, upward to 70% of people, report the fact that that matters to them, who they work for and who they buy from.
And I guess one of the dynamics that has changed a lot now is because when things start to change, the velocity of change right now is through the roof, as opposed to 15 years ago.
Correct.
Because of technology.
Yeah.
How do you think technology has helped this?
Well,
or hurt it?
Yeah. So in the book, I talk a lot about, why, Mon, are you talking about the next evolution of branding? What are you saying? Well, what I mean by that, Jeff, is that early in my career, I was one of those boys of Madison Avenues, where we were in the business of selling Sizzle. We were telling great stories. When I was at University of West Florida, I was part of a documentary team. Our job was to tell stories, right? And when I started my firm, ID Group, in 1989, I thought, let's tell great stories. And we did that, right? We did that. Today, it's not enough just to tell great stories. So it goes back to what I said before. What has technology done? It's created a hyper-connectedness of people. So while people are looking for companies to stand for something, to be something, they're looking also, most importantly, for authenticity. So you can't spin this. You can't over-sizzle it. So this technology has created a level of hyperconnectivity where what you do today inside your company, what is said, what is done, is likely to travel at the speed of a button being pushed, right?
Right.
A review. Let's just look at even the situation with Facebook or what's going on with Google right now. Who people say they are versus what's really happening cannot be hidden.
Right.
The walls have crumbled between internal and external, and technology is the great equalizer. And in the days when we were first in business in '89, the people who controlled the marketing budgets and we controlled the message. No one really understood what we were doing, right?
Right.
It was all magic.
Right.
We controlled the media. And today, the public controls the message and, to a large extent, the channels. And so what is happening here is the process is democratized, and technology, much like it is in many other fields, is the facilitator of that. So you just can't fake this. You can't fake it. Yeah. And so when we talk about Beyond Sizzle, we really mean that you really have to engage the people in your organization with clarity about your purpose, clarity about your values, and more importantly, you have to bring those values to life every day, in every decision, in every way within your organization, if you want to build that authenticity of meaning in the marketplace.
And don't you think, too, that companies are really going to have to start stressing on how they treat their employees? Because it appears to me, and your research probably back this up, the millennial generation is not as tolerable of some of the nonsense and I'm just going to work you to death type in mentality as perhaps mine and your generation.
It's really interesting. Most of the people who work for me are under 35. And you know what I find a little bit? Let me just give you a little different look on that. They will work themselves to death for something they believe in. And it's, what are we doing here as a society? What are we doing as a company? Where do we fit? What difference do I make? Everybody wants to feel they matter. And mattering means mattering to something more than just what I put in the bank. Although that's still important.
Sure.
And so I would say I have tremendous respect for the millennial generation. A lot of people give them a hard time. I just think they are looking for meaning in a world that we have become spun into so many different pieces. Where do I fit? Where do I belong? I happen to think organizations can be an answer to that. we can be that place where people find meaning, that place where we believe that we are making a positive impact, that place where people are built and developed and reach new levels of personal development, but also that they understand they're reaching beyond just a selfish self-interest to a bigger thing. So I think we all work for harder when there's something we believe in. And I think that's what our opportunity is.
Yeah, I think you're right, and I didn't, if I came across indicating that the millennials, because I know a lot of people say, those millennials, they're lazy.
No, they do. They've
lazy
gotten,
and But they are hard workers, and in a lot of ways, they're smarter than we are.
I can tell you that's for true.
But I guess where I was going with that is their approach to doing things is just a little bit different. You know, I mean, the way they go about doing their work. I mean, in our day, it was all about the corner office and, you know, that kind of thing. And now it may be, you know, I'm going to work, 18 hours a day, but I'm going to work, 6 of those from home or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, the flexibility of it. And I think the other piece of it, Jeff, has to do with organization structure. And I think that's probably what you're talking about, where, it's not about command and control. It's not about, kind of this hierarchical, I'm at the top, you're at the bottom. I think what we're looking for in organizations today, and we, again, research shows this very, very clearly, this collaboration, this where everybody brings their best thinking to the table. And I think the flexibility, and some of that has to do with social welfare too, right? How do you care for people? How do you, I still struggle with this concept of work-life balance. I'm not real sure what that means, but I don't struggle with dignity of individuals. How we create organizations where people feel valued and they bring their best to work because they think they're a part of the best and they're making difference. So I'm still a '60s child, so I can't help myself on that. Right. It's one of those things that I know works. I know that it's real. And you're right, today's world has changed. Rather than seeing what's wrong with it, though, I think what we can say is here are the opportunities we have to really unleash the spirit and the power of people. And I happen to think private enterprise has a huge role to play in this and the challenges that we face as a society. And I think organizations who kind of see themselves as people responsible for leaving the world a little better than we found it is really where we're going to see the changes that we need in the world. I don't think we can step back and say to government, you got to figure it out.
Right.
We don't have time for that. They're not fast enough.
No.
Industry
no,
and
not.
Business is a lot faster, so we can figure it out.
Absolutely, and the marketplace kind of sets the tone, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Absolutely.
I mean, no question about it.
And it's very interesting. Let me just circle back to interface really, really quickly. And the book is one of the people I dedicated this book to is Ray Anderson, because he had just such a profound impact on my life and my work. But a company like Interface, who basically, they basically produce carpet squares. Okay, they were one of the first really sustainable manufacturing companies in the world. But as we look at this company, what they're doing right now is they now are using their business as a platform for dealing with issues around climate change and issues that really are helping the world have a different kind of conversation around climate change. So that we're not talking about, whoa, the world is going to, but rather, here's some things we can do immediately to make differences. So when I'm talking about business as the impact business can have, whether small or large, right? Interface is a global manufacturing company. But every company can look at themselves and itself and say, what difference can we make with our people, with our community? And I'm not talking about writing checks, right? I'm talking about substantial difference in how we have a different conversation that can move society and what we believe is society. So I know I'm getting off on my soapbox there, but that's where I think business comes in. And even back when we talked originally, in the original research I did, is the role industry and business can play in solving some of the biggest challenges we have as society, in creating a healthier, more productive workforce, and because of what we believe, about business. So,
Well, very valid points. And it's one thing for a large, multinational company to engage in this, but how does a small company say that, maybe has 25 to 300 employees? How do they make that change?
Let me tell you something I'm so excited about. So this year we became the first certified B Corp in Pensacola. And a certified B Corp basically is a corporate entity who has made a different choice about their corporate charter. And so in addition to being responsible to the stakeholders, there's an expanded view of responsibility that affects environmental, social, there's governance, there's people. So the B Corp gives a very clear framework to say, here's how you, one person to 1 million people, can really run your company in a way that creates a positive impact, a bigger and positive impact. So for us at ID Group, we decided to you can become a B Corp, by the way, in the state of Florida, you can become a B Corp simply by filing with the Secretary of State. But a certified B Corp is a third-party validation that indeed you are doing the things you said. And what I really liked about it is it holds us accountable. It's easy to wax poetic about all this stuff, right? But it holds us accountable and measures our impact, and we have to file a report every year about what we're doing. So to your point is not every company can be, an environmental guru, right? Because they're not set up that way.
Sure.
But you can have social impact. You can have social impact through causes. You can have as simple as, how about this? As simple as having one day a month where your company goes out and works on a community of service kind of project. At ID Group, we started something called Brand on Us, where we pick one small not-for-profit every year, and we do all of our services free of charge. We've engaged community members, our television stations and billboard companies, et cetera, to come with us to help lift up this small not-for-profit. We believe by having impact on them, we're impacting something more. So I don't think there's any one way to do any of this. I think it has to do with the heart and the intention and action. Not sitting around talking about it, but saying, this is how. But it's also, Jeff, about how you run your company.
Right.
It's not about just let me go do this to offset this.
Right.
I don't do this. I don't have benefits for my employees, or I expect 80-hour weeks, or I have no flexibility with their schedules, or whatever in a negative way. But oh, by the way, we're going to let them go out and do this. So it's a bigger picture. That's why B Corp is so valuable, in that it helps you really look at and measure the way the world looks at companies that we're talking about.
Let me ask you this, and I'm getting a little short on time. I have about 5 minutes left, but how do you gauge or determine what causes you want to take on that perhaps, I think you have to be careful and not alienate some group of customers? And I'm going to use the Nike example right now. I'll get you to comment about that on the whole Colin Kaepernick thing. I mean, clearly that is, you got a group of people over here that see it one way, a group of people over here that see it another way. How do you balance that?
Yeah.
Was that a risk for Nike?
Oh, sure. I've had a lot of conversation around this. I'm not going to judge Nike, but I will give you my perspectives on ups and downs. So I'm a believer that organizations should take risk if it is truly what you believe, if it is about your values. But it is not enough just to do an ad campaign. It is not enough just to kneel at a football game. The ultimate measure of commitment isn't that. It's what you do with that. So if Colin Kaepernick believes in his social intentions here, if Nike believes in it, I ask the question, and when the lights are dimmed, what have they really done? Have they taken action? But yeah, Nike did take a risk, but also if you look at Patagonia a couple years ago, took a similar risk when they really sued were a part of a suit that against the government because the government was trying to take over some land that had been set aside for climbing, etc. Well, no one questioned Chenard's commitment, right? Because his actions over the years have lived up to that. Has Nike's actions and does Nike's actions speak to their true commitment and social responsibility? Does Colin Kaepernick's actions? So when we deal with things like cause marketing or things associated or brands associated with causes and values, the truth of it is always found in what did you do? And I was saying to some people the other day, I said, I love the term, just do it, right? So the question for me is going to be, will Nike just do it? Right. What will they do? Right. So we'll see. Yeah. We'll see. But I think, Jeff, sometimes you do have to take risk. If you truly believe in something, you have to stand up and stand for what you believe in. I think your marketing can be associated with that, but you are correct. You must understand that not everyone will agree. Right. And so, but great brands stand for something, and great brands can't suit everyone. Right. And for those of us who are, like I think, we hope, maybe Nike will make a huge difference in this. I don't know. Yeah. Do I agree with everything? No. Right. But from a pure branding standpoint, it is, it's a good case study to see if a company who stood up and stood out will actually make a huge difference around the social. I don't know. We'll see.
It will be interesting to see. It'll make for a great academic study.
It will be a nice follow-up interview with you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, wonderful. Beyond Sizzle, the next evolution of branding. It's the name of the book.
Thank you.
Mona Amodeo. She has visited with us before. We talked a lot about sustainability at that particular time, and a lot has changed around the world and around the United States. A lot of the thought process has changed, and so come back and have the book here. So I would strongly encourage people to pick it up, and I know you've got some great kind of, I'll call them case studies, that may or may not be the right word for it in there. And I noticed you also had one in there with our friend Dr. Saunders, who recently took over the University of West Florida.
There is, and then there is Visit Pensacola is in there, and a small company here in Pensacola called Num Num is in there. So I tried to give a shout out to our Pensacola people.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
All the very best. Again, the name of the book, let me put my glasses on so I can make sure I really see it well. Beyond Sizzle, the next evolution of branding. Talking about things changed since we were last on the air together. I wasn't wearing readers.
I don't think I was either.
Thank you so very much. All the best of luck to you. By the way, I'll tell you, Mona is also the founder and chief executive officer of idgroup. They are online at idgroupbranding.com. More of our conversations, well, they're flying around online as well at WSRE.org/conversations. We're also on Facebook and YouTube. I'm Jeff Weeks. Thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the broadcast. Take wonderful care of yourself, and we'll see you soon.
Support for this program is provided in part by Gulf Power, a Southern company, and by viewers like you. Thank you.